The Denver Broncos' relentless comeback effort against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs falls short. Unfortunately, Denver drops another game, but after being down 27-0, the Broncos demonstrated something we haven't seen from them all season long. On the offensive side of the ball, that is resiliency. That is fight. What does that mean for the remaining 4 games of the season here for the Denver Broncos? Plus, will they have Russell Wilson this upcoming week against the Arizona Cardinals? Not to mention Jerry Jeudy, breakout player. We dive into that and much more in today's Locked On Broncos post-game report.
You are Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, Broncos country? Welcome into a brand new episode of Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much to everybody in Broncos country for tuning in, making Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day. Free and available everywhere you get your podcast in audio format or whether you watch us on YouTube. Thank you so much for bearing with us through this season. Broncos country, we have you covered every single day, all year long, with a podcast on the team that you root for on Sundays. From the South Stands to the end zone, I'm your host, as always, Cody Roark, Broncos reporter from Mile High Sports, joined alongside, as always, by my co-host, Sayre, Bedinger, site expert, predominantly orange.com. The Broncos' valiant comeback effort fell short against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday after a epically disappointing start where at one point the Broncos trailed 27-0 in this game. But Sayre, led by Russell Wilson and the defense making some plays and a wide receiver we've been clamoring for that the Broncos need to feature heavily in the offense more, they started to make things interesting, made things a one-score game here. Unfortunately, hey, an L is an L, but the Broncos did something that you and I have been asking for all year. Find some life on the offensive side of the ball. Fight. Where is it? I think we saw that on Sunday.
We did, Cody. I mean, I was saying to you before we even started the show, it's like the Broncos have been just lifeless on a bed. Everybody's been waiting, watching. Can we just see a flicker of life from them? Just a quick flick of the finger or a blink of the eyes to make sure they're still there. And sure enough, against, of all teams, the Kansas City Chiefs, I kind of felt a little weird feeling going into this game around Saturday, Sunday morning, thinking like, man, how confusing would it be for Broncos country if they would go out and actually win this game, right? You've been terrible all year, and then you go out and beat Kansas City. That would have certainly been something. Obviously, that didn't happen. The Broncos fell short in this game. But, man, it was, dare I say, the funnest game of the year. Cody, I mean, it was really a lot of fun. I mean, after the 27-0 start, which had me just about ready to turn in my annual Denver Broncos fan pass, I was about to turn it in after all these years. I was like, man, like what even is this? What are we watching right now? And then Josey Jewell with the interception, and the offense actually taking advantage of that interception. And then Patrick Surtain's pick and taking advantage of that one. We finally saw signs of life in the offense. And incidentally, Cody, the play in which Russell Wilson got injured, I know we'll talk about that. That particular play, I think, really has Broncos country, at least maybe not 100% of Broncos country, but I would say a wide majority of Broncos country saw Russell make that play and take that hit and get, come off the field with a concussion. And the way that he went about that and the fight that he showed on that play, the will to win, which is what I saw, I think that rallied a lot of people in Broncos country back around Russell.
I think that was a huge moment for Russ, and I agree with you. I mean, I think a lot of us in the media, we were talking about this in the elevator going down to the post-game press conference. Like, for Russ, what was one of the things we've seen? Like, oh, he's no longer mobile. I think the mobility thing had a lot to do with his hamstring, to be honest with you. But, like, we saw Russ kind of turn back the clock a little bit. That play there in question, I mean, he had a defender wrapped around his shoulder initially. He ducks underneath, and he fights and wills his way. Granted, Denver had a 2nd and 34, Sayre, on that same exact series there. Just 2 plays later, we saw Russell Wilson pick up that first down, 14 yards on 3rd and 11, and unfortunately, paid the price. He took a massive shot, is in concussion protocol. His status for this week is going to be highly questionable, but it's just stuff like that. Like, he wants to win. Right. And talking to players in the locker room afterwards, like, yeah, I mean, that's a guy that wants to win. He did everything he could to try to do it. I hope it changes a lot of Broncos fans' perspective, because what if you and I've been talking about here, like, well, Russ obviously deserves some criticism. And look, in that first half, too, he didn't play relatively well until really you started to get the rhythm going with Jerry Jeudy. Once you got Jerry going, it's like, okay, hey, the offense took off. Russell Wilson took off a little bit. This is that fight, right? I think everyone goes back to last year, right? Teddy Bridgewater throwing the interception and not even trying to tackle, right? Remember we talk about that? Russell Wilson wanted to win, and he did everything he could to try to do that. 3 touchdowns in this game. Like we said, okay, there's going to be people that are probably going to comment, there's no moral victories in the NFL. We understand that, okay? But you know what? Like, let's use life as an analogy. Nothing's ever going to go our way in life. Are we going to just sit and cry about it? Are we going to complain, oh, it didn't go our way, oh my gosh? But you know what? We keep plugging away in our day-to-day lives. We all do. Same thing applies in football. This was the most heart we've seen the Broncos show all year long. And I tell you what, Sarah, like that first half, like until about 7 minutes left in that second quarter, when the Broncos were down 27-0, I think we were all just sitting there like, wow, this is where we're at. Like, this is just this summarizes this entire season. Denver had a choice. Players had a choice. At 27-0, they could have been like, you know what? It's done. Let's just mail it in. You know, we got 4 games left. Let's just try to get through it. They fought their tail off, man. And I tell you what, like, Sarah, I get to be at practice every day. I get to see these guys, I get to talk to these guys off the right. These guys bust their butt every single freaking day. And obviously, like, the 3-10 results don't necessarily show that. It doesn't paint the bigger picture here. But you know what? Like I said, I talked to a lot of guys in that locker room after the game. And, you know, while the end result is still a loss, you have to just say, hey, you know, you guys battled your butt off there. Keep grinding. It's going to come together at some point. And you have to believe that. And well, there's so much to break down from this game, right? How did the Broncos get in a 27-0 deficit? How did they get back? How did they make it a 1-score game? That's something we're going to talk about in today's episode of Locked On Broncos, including the defense, who gave up a 27-0 early on lead and 295 yards to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the first half alone. What did the Broncos defense do differently to generate some momentum and help feed the offense in this game? That's something we'll dive into on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. This episode of the show is brought to you by Turo, and Turo is the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. And with Turo, you can book any car that you want wherever you want it from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the U.S., UK, Canada, and Australia. Book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip, or get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get from A to B. Or you can test drive that new electric vehicle you've had your eye on to see how it fits in your everyday life, and many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. And this post-game episode is also brought to you by our friends at Audible. And Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. That's why you'll be able to find a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion, available right now as a bonus episode on Locked On Presents. Think Like a Champion is a brand new podcast from Russell Wilson and Audible. Russ is a champion on the field, but off of it, we rarely know the grind on the path to greatness. Russell Wilson, alongside co-host Harry Wilson and the late Trevor Moawad, dig deep into how high-performance athletes, artists, and leaders push the boundaries of their potential. You get to hear from 2-time Super Bowl champion and MVP Von Miller as he delivers sharp insights about performing at your highest level in moments of extreme pressure, or NCAA champion Tim Tebow discuss how to find your unique personal mission in the world. So head over to Locked On Presents for a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion, or catch the full series available anywhere you get your podcasts, available everywhere now. Audible, get in the game. All right, Sarah, continue on today's episode, Locked On Broncos post-game report. The Broncos comeback effort from a 27-0 deficit falls short late in the fourth quarter as they drop to 3-10 on the season in a 34-28 loss to the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. Sarah, let's talk about the defense here, right? We talked about Russell Wilson, the resilient effort on the offensive side of the ball. Yes, the team lost. We understand that, and we're going to get the no moral victories comments. I don't care at this point, Sarah. We just wanted to see the Broncos be competitive, right? When we talked about it, we would much rather see the Broncos be in a game where they're competing, they're trading barbs, and then they lose in the last minute, or they lose late, versus just getting blown out and just being the same story every single week. The same story we've seen for 13 straight weeks. Week 14 was entirely different for this Broncos team. So I just want to say thank you so much to everybody in Broncos country for tuning in, making Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day every single day. Sarah, my friend, The defense in the first half or the first quarter and a half, man, I tell you what, we hadn't seen anything like that from them all season. In the first half alone, the Broncos defense, they allowed 295 yards of offense to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And really, I'd say the snowball effect, right, came from that one play where Patrick Mahomes is rolling out to his right, pressures in his face. Justin Simmons is coming up, and he just underhands it over Justin Simmons into Jerick McKinnon's hands, who runs for 56 yards for a touchdown. It's like, wow, how many freaking times are we going to see Patrick Mahomes do that? It was a different story, though, going late in the second quarter through the remainder of the game here, as the Broncos really held the Chiefs to only one touchdown in the second half after, unfortunately, allowing 27-0. Granted, you could say 20-0. Russell Wilson did have a pick six by Willie Gay, who, unfortunately, in back-to-back years against the Broncos in Denver has had a defensive touchdown. So outside of that, man, what happened? How did the defense get things going? And who were the guys that stood out in your opinion?
Well, I think like we mentioned in the first segment, it started with Jewell, that interception when you're down 27-0. I mean, it was hard to even really get excited about. And you even had a lot of fans on Twitter getting upset at the fact that the Broncos defense went into the end zone and did the traditional, posing in the end zone or whatever.
Yeah.
And a lot of fans got upset about that because it's like, hey, read the room. You're down 27-0. But that was Josey's first career interception, if I recall correctly, Cody. So, I mean, Justin Simmons, it sounds like from what they were saying in the post-game interviews and everything, it sounds like Justin Simmons was like, no, let's go celebrate. Like, this is your first interception. So, I mean, I love that kind of a thing. And it gets you back into it. It gets you back into the feel and the flow. Obviously, the offense goes out there and gives you, 7 points, puts it on the board. And then Patrick Surtain with just an incredible interception as the Chiefs. We know I remember back in the 2015 game, remember where the Chiefs were kind of beating the Broncos handily. This was the last time the Broncos actually beat the Chiefs. But back in that early 2015 game, the Chiefs and Andy Reid were trying to put a few extra points on the board before halftime. And I can't remember who, I think it was Aqib Talib, got the pick six right before halftime in that game. And it just completely shifted everything around. And that's kind of what Pat Surtain's interception did in the second quarter, allowed the Broncos to get yet another touchdown. It was 2 straight trips to the red zone, 2 straight Jerry Jeudy touchdowns. I mean, you love to see that kind of stuff. So those 2 plays by the defense really set everything in motion. Obviously, that second touchdown to Jerry Jeudy happened just before halftime. Then the offense comes out right out of the gates in the second half. You have the big touchdown to Marlon Mack, of all people, who had that on the bingo card. But that's where the defense was able to really get things going. And this is where the team really failed in this game, though, Cody. After the touchdown to Marlon Mack, the defense forces 2 straight 3-and-outs of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense, and the offense was unable to capitalize on that. So that was really the momentum killer. Although the Broncos did, cut the deficit back to 6 points, there was a lot from this defense in this game that, okay, yes, early on they allowed 20 points, and they were looking absolutely terrible. Couldn't cover Travis Kelce. Juju Smith-Schuster making plays on third down. Jerick McKinnon looking like the second coming of Barry Sanders or something out there. I don't know. It was just all over the map of these players making plays for Kansas City in the first half. So the defense does deserve some criticism for that. But at the same time, they really bounced back in that second quarter. Late, they got the team back in the game. The offense they started to play actual complementary football. Have we seen that all year, Cody? So, I mean, I was excited about that. I think the defense did its job. They adjusted late in this game. And obviously, you'd love to see the stop on that final drive where they allow the catch to Marquez Valdes-Scantling on 3rd and 11. Really great opportunity to get off the field there. Just once again, the Broncos falling short in these little areas, or these one, it's like 1 or 2 times they're falling short in these games. They're 3-8 now in 1-score games this season.
Now, while they did allow 3 touchdowns to Patrick Mahomes, they also had 3 interceptions, right? So what do we call that? We call that offsetting in a sense. And I tell you what, like that last Patrick Mahomes touchdown they had to Juju Smith-Schuster, I mean, the Broncos pressure, because it was 3rd down. It was like 3rd and goal. It was in the red zone. That last touchdown pass, Mahomes did what we always see him do, right? Elude pressure, do a spin move, go the other way. He's literally being wrapped up by 2 or 3 Broncos defenders around the waist and around the legs as he throws that to Juju Smith-Schuster. And it's like, God, how many times have we seen Patrick Mahomes do this, right? But here's also the other thing as well. Patrick Mahomes will avoid any criticism of kind of how he performed. Like, he didn't play that well in the second half. Like, from that late second quarter through on, he didn't play great, right? Denver did a lot of good things defensively. They got the ball back, 3 interceptions. But you know what? You don't fall under a lot of criticism when you have 3 touchdowns and you're on the winning side of things. So all fair play there to Patrick Mahomes. But Denver is going to have to find a way to adjust, I think, going forward, because, you have one more matchup with Kansas City. I'll be very intrigued to see how that is, especially being on the road here. What's the storyline going to be, right? Is Russell Wilson going to be available for that matchup? I mean, it's just here in several weeks, and the season will almost be over at this point. But yeah, I think you're spot on there. The Broncos defense absolutely deserves criticism for that first half. 295 total yards allowed in the first half. They'd finished the game allowing 413 total yards. So a little bit of an adjustment. We saw that step there in that second half. And I tell you what, like Jonathan Cooper coming off the edge, Draymond Jones creating pressure. Like, the Broncos did fluster Mahomes a little bit in the second half. And unfortunately, a couple of plays on third down, as you mentioned. I mean, the Chiefs were 6 of 12, 50% conversion percentage on third down. That was what really kind of was the difference in this game. The pick six, you can always make them, hey, if the Broncos don't throw that pick six, they probably look at this game in a sense that they may have a chance to win it, So just some missed opportunity. Unfortunately, you want some things back. And but like I said, I just think that we have to, for us covering the team, and I think for Broncos fans, well, yeah, a loss is a loss. It's disappointing. But this was the most fight we've seen from this team. Like, it was good to see them actually fight against Kansas City. And it was good to see them fight after being down 27-0, because I even posted the moment they went up 27-0, Sayre, I posted on Twitter, I put a little star and I said Sims to the end of the game. Like, I was like, all right, this, connection to the pier has been lost. Let's back out. Let's just be done with it. But I was glad to kind of eat crow on that a little bit, just to see the offense do a little bit more, right? But now some bigger questions loom for this Broncos team as we go forward, especially with Russell Wilson having a concussion and will now go into concussion protocol. What does this mean? What does this mean for the offense? What does it mean for the team going forward with 4 games remaining and an upcoming home game against Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals? You'll get that on today's Lockdown Broncos postgame report. This episode of the show is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks, and PrizePicks is daily fantasy sports done right. With the PrizePicks app, you choose 2 to 5 players that you're focused on heading into the week. These players, they'll have a projection that's set by PrizePicks, and you simply choose whether or not they will have more or less than their PrizePicks projection, which could allow you to win 10 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign-up for an instant deposit match up to $100. What does this mean for the Broncos offense and as a team in general? With 4 games remaining on the season, a valiant comeback effort against the Kansas City Chiefs ultimately falls short. But the fight, the heart, the resiliency, and grit was on display. But now the Broncos may be without Russell Wilson coming into this week. Thank you so much, Broncos country, for tuning in to the Lockdown Broncos post-game report here as the Broncos dropped to 3-10 on the season following a 34-28 loss to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Just want to say thank you so much, Broncos country, for bearing with us this entire season. It hasn't been what anybody in Broncos country has hoped for. But one thing that we are grateful for is your interaction and you tuning in every single day, making Lockdown Broncos your first listen of the day. Sayre, what does this mean for the Broncos going forward, right? Like, ultimately, you can't look back on the season, and I think this is going to be an important point. You can't look back coming into this week, or, let's fast forward to the end of the season. You can't let the highlight of your year just be a valiant comeback effort that fell short against the Kansas City Chiefs, right? I firmly believe the Broncos in these final 4 games, Arizona Cardinals, you have the Los Angeles Rams, Kansas City Chiefs, Los Angeles Chargers to close out the season. There are 4 teams that you're going to play, and they're going to be 4 tough teams as well. I want to see a little bit more of what we saw on Sunday. I want to see a fight. I want to see the resiliency. I want to see the grit here. But it's going to be a huge question because Russell Wilson may not play this week as he is now in concussion protocol, which could, as we know, with the NFL's changing of the rules, and rightfully so, the right moves that the NFL made to do just this, it could hold Russell Wilson out as he goes through that. And I tell you what, he took a massive shot in this game. He had a huge goose egg on his head, that's not a good indicator. So more than likely, I think we should all prepare for Brett Rippon to be the quarterback this week for the Broncos. What does this mean going forward?
Well, that's a lot going on there. Obviously, if Russell is healthy and able to play, that's great news. We don't necessarily expect it just because of the nature of this kind of injury and what we've seen from the NFL protocol this season. So hopefully for Russ's sake, he is able to get cleared. I mean, obviously you don't ever want to see anybody have to go out with a concussion or any sort of injury for that matter, but concussions especially very, very scary. So I think, man, if he's not able to play, it then becomes an issue of, are you going to be able to get the best look at your team for the future with Brett Rippon out there? I think there's some elements of the offense that you're still going to be able to run effectively, but if the run game is not going, I mean, then you're asking Rippon to go out there and, for lack of a better term, let her rip, right? And you're asking him to go out there and do probably more than he's able to do at this point. If only the Broncos had the opportunity, Cody, to claim a former number 1 overall draft pick on waivers at the quarterback position, that could have been a decent hedge at the position. Oh, that's right. They did. They're actually going to be playing against Baker Mayfield here in a couple of weeks after his impressive performance with the LA
Merry
Rams.
Christmas, by the way.
Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. I think, Cody, it's so tough to know because we want, at this point now, we've seen the good from Russ. Like, the worst possible thing that could happen is that he doesn't play, because now it's like, okay, can you build something off that? That's what we want to see. Can you build something? Like, to be honest, I hope the best for Brett Rippon's career. It doesn't really matter to me what he's able to do in any sort of sample size at the end of this game. It doesn't matter to the future of the Denver Broncos. Do we want to see Jerry Jeudy go out there and have another 3-touchdown game if possible? Absolutely. Do we want to see more from Greg Dulcich? Absolutely. But unless Russell Wilson is the captain of the ship, it really doesn't mean anything for the future of this team. We need to see consistency out of Russ. Having a 3-touchdown game against Kansas City is very, very encouraging going forward. And the fact that he probably would have had at least 4 had it not been for the concussion, I think is big but going forward, man, if it's Brett Rippon playing out there, you're kind of just hoping for the best in terms of guys staying healthy, being able to put up some, numbers or some points offensively and not looking terrible out there. But to me, it really means nothing for the future of the team unless Russ is out there.
Well, and I would say this as well, because you and I have been kind of banging the drum. Like, while Russ has not played well this season, deserves some criticism. You and I are in the boat of saying there's no way in hell Russ just suddenly fell off, and this is who Russ is, right? And I think that we saw glimpses of the fact that, what we've seen from Russ this season, this isn't who Russ truly is. And there were some things that opened up, and granted, like, we lost in all the conversation about this entire game and all the storylines. No Dalton Reisner in this game for the Broncos, no Cortland Sutton. I mean, the Broncos started Luke Wattenberg at left guard, and granted, the Broncos O-line surrendered 6 total sacks in this game to Kansas City's defense. Not ideal, and that's not going to obviously help you win games ever. Luke Wattenberg got benched in the second half for Quinn Bailey. Quinn Bailey comes in on the very first series of the second half, the Marlon Mack touchdown. Bam, there you go. But then the next series, it's like he got benched. Then Natani Muthi came in and finished the game at left guard. So I'm trying to figure out in my head, like, man, the offensive line, like, what is going on? Like, just constantly changing this season. And it is hard to expect a guy like Russell Wilson to really just sit and thrive and have success when you're just having different guys in the starting lineup on the offensive line every single week. And there were a couple of miscommunication errors on the offensive line. In my opinion, Sayre, got to do away with the screen game. It just simply doesn't work for Denver. Teams know that Denver's going to run it. They sniff it out really easily, but we'll see what happens. I mean, if Denver can find, let's say they avoid the mistakes, right? And let's say defensively they avoid giving up the big plays they gave up this week. I think Denver can beat the Arizona Cardinals. Now, granted, it's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be another tough test because you got DeAndre Hopkins, you got Kyler Murray, you got a multitude of weapons on the offensive side of the ball for them. Oh, and on the other side of things too, they have a pretty damn good defense led by Budda Baker. Obviously, you have Zaven Collins there as well, and former Broncos head coach Vance Joseph. This could be the Vance Joseph revenge week, and the Broncos need to play spoils to that. And I think if they fight and they play as resilient as they did in that second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, so I think the Broncos can get another win this season. But You have to find a way to continue to build on it, as you mentioned. And it is hard to build on that when you don't have Russell Wilson at quarterback. He is your guy for the foreseeable future. You want to see him continue to evolve and do just that. We'll see what the storylines are this week here in Dove Valley Broncos country. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's Locked On Broncos post-game report here on Locked On Broncos, wherever you get your podcast in audio format or whether you watch on YouTube. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for bearing with us through this season that has not gone how you have expected, how I have expected, or how Sayre Bedinger has expected. But one thing is for certain, we have you covered every single day all year long. Broncos country, appreciate you so much. Thank you for all the conversation, all the discussion, all the debates that we all have. Make sure you keep things respectful with other members in Broncos country down below. Share us your thoughts on this game and what you saw from the Broncos in the resilient comeback effort that ultimately fell short against the Kansas City Chiefs. Do you feel like there's anything that this team can build on with 4 games remaining? We are eager for your thoughts here on Locked On Broncos. We'll see you tomorrow for the aftermath of the Broncos loss to the Kansas City Chiefs.